They say a marriage doesn't end with a massive explosion, but with a quiet, devastating whimper. I used to laugh at that. I believed that love, real love, was a fortress designed to withstand any storm. For 6 years, my wife Elena and I built what I thought was an unbreakable sanctuary. But trust is a fragile thing, like a glass sculpture you spend years polishing, only to shatter it in a single second. It started with a key, a simple, unmarked brass key that didn't belong to our house, our cars, or our office. It was hidden in the darkest corner of her life, and finding it changed everything I knew about the woman sleeping next to me. If you think you truly know the person you share your bed with, listen closely to my story, because the truth might be hiding right in front of your eyes. My name is Julian. I've always been a man who appreciates order and quiet routines. Elena was a landscape designer, a woman who brought color and chaotic beauty into my overly structured world. We lived in a restored farmhouse just outside of Portland, surrounded by tall pines and the constant, soothing sound of rain. We had our patterns: morning coffee on the porch, weekend trips to local nurseries, and quiet evenings reading by the fireplace. To anyone looking from the outside, we were the perfect match. We had bypassed the turbulent years of young love and settled into a deep, comfortable partnership. But comfort can be a dangerous narcotic. It blinds you to the subtle shifts in the wind. It makes you overlook the quiet distance growing between two people who still share the same bed but have stopped truly looking into each other's eyes. The first crack in our perfect life appeared late last autumn. Elena started taking on private consulting clients in the city, which meant she was spending more time away from home. At first, I was incredibly proud of her expanding business, but then the tiny details began to warp. She started locking her iPad, a device we had shared freely for years to stream movies and plan our garden designs. When I asked her for the new passcode, she laughed it off, saying it was just for security reasons because of her new corporate clients. Then came the change in her presence. She was physically in the room, but her mind was miles away, anchored to a screen that kept flashing with silent notifications. I told myself I was being paranoid, that jealousy was a poison. But deep down, my instincts knew a storm was coming. By December, the atmosphere in our home had turned icy cold. One evening, Elena claimed she had an urgent client dinner in the city that would keep her out past midnight. After she left, I realized she had forgotten her primary design notebook on the kitchen island. Knowing how crucial it was for her meetings, I decided to drive to the city and deliver it to her there. I opened her shared location on my phone, but the dot was frozen at a highway rest stop 10 miles away. I drove to that location, my heart hammering against my ribs. Her car wasn't there. When I called her, she answered instantly, her voice sounding perfectly calm over the car's Bluetooth. She claimed she was sitting in a noisy restaurant downtown, but the background was dead silent. I hung up the phone, realizing the woman I loved was living a double life. 3 days later, the truth finally forced its way into the light. Elena came home late from another supposed consultation, her cheeks flushed from the freezing winter air. As she stepped into the entryway, she looked exhausted, almost burdened by a heavy weight. I walked over to help her take off her heavy wool trench coat, a gesture of affection we had shared for years. As I slid the coat off her shoulders, I felt something heavy shifting inside the silk lining of the inner pocket. Before she could react, my fingers brushed against a deep, intentional slit in the fabric. I reached inside and pulled out a small leather pouch. Inside was a single, shiny brass key attached to a small wooden tag. Hand-carved onto the wood were 2 words that made my stomach drop into a bottomless void. Our sanctuary. Elena froze, her face turning pale as snow. The silence in the hallway was deafening, heavy enough to crush the air right out of my lungs. I held the key between my fingers, waiting for her to offer an explanation, a joke, or even a lie that I could pretend to believe. Instead, she just stood there, her eyes darting between the key and my face, filled with a mixture of terror and deep exhaustion. "Julian, please," she whispered, her voice cracking under the weight of the moment. I looked down at the wooden tag, realizing the handwriting wasn't hers. It was bold, masculine, and completely unfamiliar. This key didn't belong to a client's estate or a public garden. It belonged to a private apartment, a secret world she had built with someone else while I was busy planning our future. The illusion of my perfect marriage shattered right there on the cold wooden floor. I looked at her and asked the only question that mattered. Who is he? Elena let out a ragged breath, tears finally spilling over her eyelashes. She didn't try to deny it, which somehow hurt even worse than a lie. His name is Marcus, she said quietly, her voice barely audible over the sound of the wind rattling our windows. But it's not what you think, Julian. It's not just about him. I let out a bitter, hollow laugh. You built a sanctuary with another man, Elena. What else am I supposed to think? She took a step closer, her hands reaching out but stopping short of touching me. I was drowning, she cried out, her voice filled with raw, painful emotion. You were so busy being perfect, so busy maintaining our routine, that you stopped seeing me. I became just another piece of furniture in your orderly life. Those words hit me like a physical blow, knocking the anger right out of my chest. I wanted to scream, to blame her entirely for breaking our sacred vows, but a cold wave of clarity washed over me instead. I looked around our immaculate, perfectly organized living room, and for the first time, I saw the cage I had built. I had valued order over connection. I had chosen comfort over intimacy. It didn't excuse her betrayal, and it didn't erase the pain of the key in my hand, but it forced me to see my own reflection in the shattered glass of our marriage. We sat on the kitchen floor for hours, not arguing, but speaking with a raw, brutal honesty we hadn't used in years. We finally looked at each other, stripped of our routines, admitting how lonely we both had been. We didn't save our marriage that night, and the brass key never unlocked our front door again. Elena moved out the following week, leaving behind a house that suddenly felt way too quiet and far too spacious. But as the months passed, the anger faded into a profound, quiet understanding. I realized that the hardest part of losing someone isn't the physical absence. It's the sudden, forced awakening to your own flaws. I learned that love isn't a structure you build once and leave standing. It's a living, breathing garden that requires constant attention, vulnerability, and the courage to show up, even when things get messy. I still keep that little wooden tag on my desk as a reminder, not of her betrayal, but of the dangerous price of taking the people you love for granted and the vital importance of keeping your eyes wide open. If this story touched something deep inside you, please take a moment to hit the like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. Have you ever experienced a moment where a simple discovery completely changed how you saw someone you loved? I read every single comment, and your stories mean the world to me. If you want to hear another powerful story about hidden secrets, unexpected betrayals, and the quiet moments that redefine our lives, click on the video appearing on your screen right now. Let's dive into another journey together, exploring the hidden truths of human relationships and the complex paths we take to find ourselves. Thank you so much for watching, for sharing your time with me, and for being a part of this community. I'll see you in the next video, where we will uncover another secret waiting to be told.